Welcome to the Wild and Fierce podcast. We are your hosts, Amber
and Johanna. We're here to explore womanhood through real, raw, and unfiltered conversations.
Please remember this podcast is for education only and not a substitute for medical advice. Always consult your own healthcare professional.
Let's dive in.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Wild and Fierce podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about all things birth prep. So the title of this episode is Birth Prep 101, Why Your Body Knows What to Do, but Preparation Makes It Better. So this topic is very near and dear to my heart. Birth prep is a very big foundational piece of my coaching at Fierce Not Fragile. So I'm very, very excited to bring this topic to you all. And I want to kick this off by comparing birth and labor to a marathon. You can even add pregnancy into the mix. So most of us, I would like to think, if we were going to run a marathon, we would train. We would train really hard. We would train both physically. We would work on strength. We would work on mental preparation. Maybe we'd do some visualizations. We would learn proper techniques, proper breathing techniques. We'd have our snacks ready that were high in carbohydrates and easy to take. We would build up endurance over time. And we'd have a support team and a plan, right? At least that's what I think most of us would do for a marathon. There are obviously people that wing it, but we're talking about those of us that would plan for a marathon, okay? Now, I encourage all of my clients to approach birth and pregnancy the same way we would plan for a marathon. But a lot of the times we hear, well, birth is natural, so we don't need to plan for it. Now, while I wholeheartedly agree that birth is absolutely a physiological and natural process, that doesn't mean that there aren't things that we can do to enhance our body's wisdom, right? We can still work on strategies and tools and have a support team and have a plan that can make outcomes a heck of a lot better. Now, are there still going to be things that are out of our control? 100%. But there is still power in going in with education, both physically and mentally, having a supportive team, and for lack of a better analogy, filling up your toolbox. All right. So that's what we're going to cover today. I'm going to break it down into physical birth prep, mental birth prep, and give you very tangible examples for all of those. Okay. So what we're going to talk about first is the physical side of birth prep. So this really comes back to, yes, your body knows what to do, but we can absolutely amplify that preparation and wisdom with physical prep. So when I say physical prep, I literally mean during pregnancy, physically preparing your body for birth. Now, this is going to look like a couple of things. The first one is going to be working on strength and endurance. Yes, this means getting strong and working on your cardiovascular health in preparation for birth. Birth is a long haul, especially if you are a first-time mom. You're looking at hours of hard labor, pun intended, to deliver your baby. So the stronger you are, the more endurance you have, the easier it can make labor, in the sense that you have the strength and the endurance to keep going. Are you still going to get fatigued and tired? Absolutely. It's a lot of strain on your body. But if you go into pregnancy and birth in better physical health, better physical condition, it's going to aid you a lot. Okay, so I'm always going to be an advocate for strength training. Now, does this mean that we have to go hit the gym every single day and go hard? No. Add in a couple times a week of strength training. 150 minutes of exercise is what's recommended by ACOG for pregnant women. So aim for that. I typically have my clients do 3 to 4 30 to 45 minute workouts per week. Those are more like their structured workouts. And then in addition to that, we're just working on active recovery days. So on the days they're not lifting, they're going for walks, they're moving, they're choosing the stairs over the elevator, they're walking around their house, they're going on walks with their kiddos, they're going on hikes, they're just moving their body a little bit more. Okay, so being mindful of movement. So that's the first part. Work on your strength, work on your endurance. And I do want to add one note here that there's a big myth around, well, if I wasn't active before pregnancy, that I can't start stuff during pregnancy. That has thankfully been debunked. It is actually now recommended, even by ACOG, that you do start exercise during pregnancy, even if you weren't doing something prior. Now, does this mean we go pedal to the metal, go super hard right off the bat? No, you definitely want to start slow, and ideally with some guidance from someone like me, a pre and postnatal specialist, someone that has a specialty in pregnancy and postpartum. But you can and should start being active during pregnancy. There's massive benefits for you and for baby, which is really cool. All right. So aside from strength training and cardiovascular health, I really want to spend a good amount of time on the pelvic floor and the importance of birth prep for the pelvic floor. So for anyone that doesn't know what the pelvic floor is, I'm going to give some very basic understanding here. I will tag some resources in the show notes to give you guys some more guidance, but we'll do a quick overview here. So the pelvic floor is a group of muscles that spans all the way across your pelvis. Okay. So it goes from pubic bone in the front all the way back to tailbone, sit bone to sit bone. I like to think of it like a hammock that goes all the way across, keeps your pelvic organs nice and supported, helps support your pregnancy. It obviously has to relax and lengthen during birth to allow baby to exit. It is responsible for supporting the pelvis as well, just holding all of the bones in place. There's ligaments and fascia and stuff as well, but the pelvic floor itself is what we're talking about, the muscles, okay? So because it plays such a critical role during pregnancy and birth, it is very important that we take care of it. Now, for most people, when I say take care of the pelvic floor, most people think, oh, Amber's talking about doing Kegels. Now, I don't want to make you think that Kegels are a bad thing. They have a place. They can be very, very important. But for most women, Kegels should not be the main focus, especially when we're talking about birth prep. So Kegels are a pelvic floor contraction, okay? You're contracting the muscles, so you're building strength, okay? While strength is very important in a muscle, relaxation of the muscle is equally as important. And this is the part that most women miss when it comes to birth prep. So they think, well, if I have a strong pelvic floor, I will have a better birth. But the opposite is actually true. You want to have, yes, a strong pelvic floor, but the strength is not what is going to help you during birth. During birth, you want to have a pelvic floor that can stretch and lengthen. So this is where working on pelvic floor relaxation during pregnancy is way more important than focusing on pelvic floor contraction or strengthening or Kegels. So all of my clients practice pelvic floor relaxation early on in pregnancy. So they start building that mind-body connection of what it feels like to down-regulate, relax, lengthen, and stretch the pelvic floor. Because if you think about your pelvic floor, okay, and you think right now about tightening it, okay, so you clench it, okay? If you clench and tighten something that a baby, a large object, has to come out of, you can imagine the extra strain and tension that's going to be there, right? It's going to be harder to get baby out, which does put us at higher risk for more extensive tearing. It can lead to more labor stalls, so it slows labor down and just leads to a longer labor for some women, okay? Whereas if the muscles can lengthen, relax, and make space for baby because we've practiced it before we are actually in labor, baby has more space to make movements down the pelvis. Baby has more space to actually exit. The tissue has time to stretch and relax. So we're making space for baby as opposed to closing the space off. So my clients practice pelvic floor relaxation in multiple positions. Some of my favorite is a deep squat position, so really focusing on breathing there. You can practice pelvic floor relaxation in all fours position. You can do it in like a standing hinge position. You can do it while practicing going to the bathroom. That is an amazing place to practice pelvic floor relaxation. The easiest way to practice this is to get in a comfortable position. Like I said, maybe it's a deep squat that you try. You get into a squat, you take a really big inhale, okay? When we inhale, our pelvic floor should ideally relax and lengthen, okay? So the cue that I give, as silly as this is going to sound, is think about bringing that breath to your butthole, okay? So we're bringing that air all the way down. When we inhale and bring that breath down, that is the pelvic floor at full relaxation. It's at its stretchiest, okay? Then when we exhale, everything comes back up and in. So this is like the Kegel portion where things tighten. We want to practice that relaxation as much as we can leading up to birth. So when it comes time for contractions and pushing and things like that, your body knows, okay, I need to relax. I need to surrender to these contractions, allow my body to create space as opposed to getting really, really tight. Okay, so that's the pelvic floor part. So really important things during pregnancy and preparation for birth are learning how to relax the pelvic floor muscles, not doing all sorts of Kegels. We want both pelvic floor strength. Yes, that is important, but even more important is flexibility and relaxation. Okay. Now, in addition to breathing exercises, which is the stuff that I was just talking about, we can also do lots of gentle stretches in preparation for the pelvic floor as well. So you can do perineal massage. I will put a video in the show notes showing you exactly how to do that. This is recommended to start around 35 to 36 weeks. This can also help with pelvic floor relaxation and practicing stretching and relaxing those tissues under more tension. So check the show notes for that. There's also a lot of different stretches and mobility positions that you can go in to also help prep your body. So one thing that a lot of people don't know is your surrounding musculature. So we're going to be talking about like the hamstrings, the hips, the deep core. Those help support the pelvic floor, okay? Inner thighs, outer thighs, also really, really important. So adductors, abductors. So my clients during their birth prep also focus on a lot of hip mobility, adductor relaxation, also adductor strengthening, working on releasing the glutes, because if we are people that clench our glutes a lot, we tend to have a lot more tension in the posterior or the back side of the pelvic floor. So my clients are doing all sorts of mobility exercises to both strengthen and relax all of these muscles that also support the pelvic floor. Because if we have lots of tightness in surrounding muscles, that's going to translate into the pelvic floor getting extra tight as well. Because a tight muscle, more often than not, is also a weak muscle, okay? So when someone comes to me and says, Amber, I have super tight hamstrings, or I have super tight glutes, or my adductors, my outer thighs, inner thighs are really, really tight, a light goes off in my head that says, okay, if we're having lots of tightness, we're probably having weakness. So my clients, yes, work on mobility, but we're also going to strengthen those supporting muscles that I mentioned in order to allow the pelvic floor to say, okay, the muscles around me are doing what they're supposed to do. So I can relax a little bit and not clench as much because the rest of the guys are doing their job. So if you're really deconditioned, you're someone that has not done a lot of strength training, and then you enter into pregnancy and very quickly you start having things like SI pain, pubic symphysis pain, just generalized hip pain, low back pain, pelvic discomfort. Some of that can be stemming from weakness in those supporting muscles and forcing the pelvic floor to go into hyperdrive. So strengthening, mobility, and relaxation all have to be a focus during pregnancy to set us up for success during labor. Okay? All right, that was a lot. So let all that sink in for a minute. All right, now I want to talk about some of the benefits that all of the things that I just mentioned can be both during pregnancy and birth. So because I mentioned all of the aches and pains you can have with like low back pain, hip pain, pelvic pain, stuff like that during pregnancy, it's really important to realize that when you invest your time and your energy, maybe even your finances, into taking care of yourself during pregnancy, not only are you going to make birth outcomes better, you're going to substantially increase your comfort and enjoyment of your pregnancy. So when we have more strength, when we have more relaxation in the pelvic floor, we're able to sleep better. We're not as uncomfortable when we're sleeping. We reduce those aches and pains that I mentioned. We have more stamina. We can keep up with, if you have other kiddos, you can go do more things with them. You can go on more walks with the family. You can hike longer into your pregnancy. You can do a lot more of these things for longer into the pregnancy and with much less discomfort. I mean, even just daily activities, getting up and off the floor, getting in and out of bed, carrying your laundry basket. Like the more we work on our body and our strength during pregnancy, the more comfortable our body is going to be doing day-to-day things. All right, we're going to recap the physical birth prep section, then we're going to move on to the mental section. So the biggest thing to keep in mind with physical birth prep is to focus on strength training and cardiovascular endurance. This does not have to be running sprints, you guys. This could be just going on walks, just being active, moving your body, getting your heart rate up a little bit, and then strength training. Okay, super important. The other thing is to work on the pelvic floor relaxation. So the easiest way to do this is with breath work. So diaphragmatic breathing. Again, I will put some stuff down in the show notes for you guys. Super important to practice that and practice it in multiple positions. So positions that you may want to try during labor, try those during pregnancy and practice the breathing so that when it comes time to labor, you already have these reps in your head. Okay. Then you want to focus on hip mobility while also focusing on hip strength and then working on all of the supporting musculature as well. So there are tons of different birth prep movements you can do. I tend to lean more towards the word of mobility. I don't recommend a ton of static stretching. It's more active mobility movements that can be really, really helpful to help prepare your body physically. All right. Now we're going to move on to the mental side of birth prep, which I'm going to be honest, you guys, I think the mindset piece is honestly 90% of the game. Your mind will fail you long before your body does. So this is where both working on your mindset, having an amazing team there to support you, and just believing in yourself wholeheartedly that your body and baby know what to do makes such a big difference. Because I can't tell you how many women tell me they reach the point, typically it's around transition, or even if it's just a really, really long, exhausting labor where they're like, I just can't do this anymore. Well, you can. You absolutely can. This is what your body was designed for. But your mind is playing tricks on you because our minds are incredibly powerful. Okay, so here we go. I want to start off this section first by talking about the fear, tension, and pain cycle. Okay, so the first thing that I always encourage clients to do is start rewiring the way that you think about birth. So many of us have been taught that birth is scary, that birth is painful, that birth is this medicalized emergency, when in reality, it is a beautiful physiological process that women have been doing for all of eternity. And it can be a very beautiful, yes, intense experience, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is try to rewire it to where you don't have that fear piece to it. There can be a little bit of anxiety. I mean, I think most people go into birth a little bit anxious, but there's a difference between that anxiousness and just full-on fear. Because when we are really fearful, we tend to be very tense, okay? When our bodies get really, really tense, specifically during labor, tension equals pain. And I'll give you a physical example. When we tend to get really fearful, tension happens, okay? So I'm going to start from like the top down. If you guys are not watching the video, I'll explain what I'm doing as I go. So when we think of tension, especially during labor, we think jaw clenched, okay? Shoulders are inching up towards ears, hands are clenched, body is kind of hunched over, okay? If everything at the upper portion of your body is tense, the lower portion of your body, your belly, your glutes, your pelvic floor, all of that is also going to be tense. We talked about it earlier in this episode that relaxing and making space for baby is super important. If we are super tense, closed off, curled up on ourselves, okay, we're making that space that we need for baby extra small. The other thing is that when we are really, really tense and contractions are happening, especially if we're not having an epidural, the tension is going to intensify the discomfort of those contractions versus if we can see each contraction as examples are like riding the wave, dancing with your baby. Each contraction gets you closer. Can I promise you that this is going to make all of the pain go away? No. Labor and birth are just intense. That's how it is. There's going to be some level of discomfort, and this is going to vary from one person to the other. But the more that you can Look at birth as a natural, beautiful process. You, your baby, your body knows what's happening. It's not this fear, really tense state. The better off your births are going to go, okay? Now, the other thing that I want you to work on is the thoughts that you have, both heading into birth and during birth, influence your physical experience a lot. I'm going to use an example completely unrelated to birth for you guys to understand this concept. So there is a part of our brain called the reticular activating system, okay? It is a part of our brain that helps us pick up patterns, okay? It also helps, honestly, shape our reality. So I want y'all to think of a car that you, like your dream car. Like, I mean model and color, okay? Once you have it in your head, I'm willing to bet for the next couple days, if you convince yourself that you were going to get that car, you would see that car all over the place, okay? Those cars didn't just appear. They've always been there, but your reticular activating system is looking for them, okay? There's a saying that says things that fire together wire together. So when you keep firing the thought, I want this car, your brain creates neural pathways that literally make you then see that car everywhere. The same thing happens during pregnancy and birth. So if we go into birth thinking birth is painful, I'm going to tear, this is going to be so hard, it's going to be a super hard labor, how am I even going to be able to relax myself? I don't know if I can do this. All of these negative thoughts, okay? Then you're in labor and every contraction, oh my gosh, this is so painful, this is terrible, this is the worst, like every negative thing you can possibly think of. The only thing you're going to get out of that experience is negativity, okay? As opposed to shifting your mindset to more positive affirmations, it's going to make your physical experience a lot different. The more you can speak kindly to yourself, have a supportive team that's giving you affirmations, that you can go from this super dark negative space to more of a positive space, it's physically going to feel better on your body because your reticular activating system is going to start looking for positive things as opposed to negative things. So an example could be, oh my gosh, I have so much longer to go, okay? Versus, you know what? Every contraction gets me a little bit closer to meeting my baby. That shift can make a world of a difference. So things that I have clients do during birth or during pregnancy, and birth to practice this. Visualization and mental rehearsal is essential. So using things like birth podcast, you can do birth meditations, whatever you want to do during my clients' birth prep movements. So they get assigned these during the second trimester in preparation. As they start doing these, I really encourage them to close their eyes, visualize your birth, visualize the dance that you and your baby are going to have birth affirmations and positive self-talk that you give to yourself during pregnancy and during labor. You can pin them up in your birth, wherever you're giving birth. You can have your support team say them to you. You can listen to them, whatever works for you. Start literally visualizing and manifesting what you want your birth to look like. So by the time you get to birth, you've already rehearsed this stuff in your head. Now, does this mean that it's going to go exactly as we rehearsed? No. There are parts of birth that are going to be unpredictable, but you're going in with so much more mental preparation than if you went in with no prep, right? So then if things do go a little bit different than planned, you have more resiliency and energy to keep going, okay? The other one is to do fear release work. So identifying and addressing specific fears that you have around birth. So maybe this is stories you've been told. This is things you've seen on the internet. Maybe you've had a traumatic birth in the past. That's my story. So I highly, highly encourage you, if that is your story, to seek help. Work with a therapist, work with a counselor, do something to reframe the way that you look at the media messages, the birth stories, your own stories, to really start addressing those specific fears so you go into birth, I don't want to say fearless because there's going to be some anxiety, but in a much better space than if you brought all of that stuff into the birth room with you. Okay. The other thing is building confidence in your body's abilities. So celebrating the beauty that is pregnancy, what your body's capable of. And this is why I really think that strength training and staying active during pregnancy can be so helpful, because it shows you your body's strength. Is your strength maybe different than it was when you weren't pregnant? Yes, but you can see the beauty of what your body is capable of and recognize those things. on a daily basis. All right. The other beautiful thing is practicing stress management during pregnancy to then help you be more resilient during birth. So, meditation and mindfulness, journaling, breathing practices, getting outside, creating calm environments in your house. Whatever this looks like for you, the more you can manage your stress during pregnancy, one, the better health outcomes it is for you and baby, but also it's going to help you and baby be more resilient during labor. And yes, there is actual studies out now that show that moms who are better managing their stress during pregnancy, the less stressed baby is showing to be during labor, and then they have better APGAR scores and stuff after birth. So there is a ton of relationship to mom stress levels and baby stress levels. Okay. Now we've gone over the mental stuff, I want to go into the power of education. So I do want to pitch my birth course and my one-on-one birth prep training here really quick, because this is really the core of what I do from the pregnancy side. So I have a birth course that is linked. I will put it in the show notes that you can do on your own, that has a whole bunch of video links, a ton of educational content. It gives you some of my favorite birth prep exercises, pelvic floor relaxation, just tons and oodles of content that you guys can go through to prepare for birth from an education standpoint, which I highly recommend doing. You get lifetime access. I will link that below. And then my next level is going to be like my one-on-one coaching. So this is where you have calls with me. You have custom programs. We work through the fears and building the confidence. There's individual attention. We're going to look at what you want your birth to look like. We're going to build your birth plan. So there can be so much benefit in working with a specialist during pregnancy to help you through all of this. So if you guys are wanting info on either my birth course or what it looks like to work with me one-on-one, I will put all of that in the show notes also. Okay, moving on to education. So one of the biggest things that I think, both from my own personal experience and my clients, that makes the biggest difference is your knowledge and understanding of labor, the process, your what's going to happen, what to expect, what do I do if this happens, what if I do if that happens, what do I do if my water breaks, what are my coping mechanisms. Let's say you want an epidural or you don't want an epidural. The more tools you can have going into labor, the less scary it's going to be and the better you can be as an advocate for you and your baby. So understanding the birth process reduces fear, and knowing your options greatly increases your confidence. So I want you to be prepared on, what does informed consent look like? I want you to be informed on what are interventions that might come up. I want you to be educated on, what do I want? Do I want an epidural? Do I not want an epidural? What are the risks? What are the benefits? What type of procedures am I okay with as far as interventions? What stuff am I okay with giving my baby after? What can I say no to? I'll just tell you, you can say no to almost everything. Do I want cervical checks? Do I not want cervical checks? What is cervical dilation? What is cervical effacement? If I don't want an epidural, what are my non-medicinal coping options? What labor positions do I want to try? Can I try different labor positions if I have an epidural? Like all of these incredible things that we need to know that your OBGYN or midwife doesn't have the time more often than not to educate you on. So you need to go out and educate yourself. And in my opinion, your partner needs to be just as educated as you are. Whoever is coming into the birth suite with you, ideally, I'm always going to pitch for a doula, but if you're not going to have a doula, everyone needs to be educated. Your partner, this is a two dance, guys. This is a two-person dance. It's not just mama knowing stuff. I think partners need to know just as much. So this is where buying a birth course, working with a coach can be so helpful to get all this information. Okay. So comprehensive education beyond hospital classes, you guys, is so important. There are some amazing hospital classes out there, you guys, but I will say a lot of hospital birth courses are hospital policy based. So you're not getting as much evidence-based information as you would be if you took an out-of-network hospital one. So just keep that in mind. Partner preparation involvement is huge, like I've already said. Creating your birth preferences. So I am a big advocate for creating a birth plan, or you can call it birth preferences. And then having a backup plan, because like I mentioned earlier, things don't always go according to plan. So having backup options of, if A happens, I'm okay with this X, Y, and Z. If B happens, I'm okay with these things, are really, really important. Okay. I do have a freebie, you guys, also that I will link for a birth planning guide that has a birth plan, a hospital packing list, and stuff that you can download that I will put in the show notes also to help you with that part. Okay? All right. Now we're going to go on to team building. So this is where creating your ideal birth care providers is so important. Okay? So this comes down to where you're giving birth first off. Are we doing a home birth? Are we doing a hospital? Are we doing a midwife center? What are we doing? Okay, birth center. Figuring out that part. What fits what you are looking for? What do you desire for your birth? Then finding a team of supportive providers. And this may look like interviewing a lot of providers. I often see women who feel like they owe something to a provider just because they go in for an initial visit, that they need to stay with that provider, even if they don't feel supported, because they owe them something. You don't owe them anything. This is your birth. At the end of the day, you are another client or another patient on their roster, right? Whereas this is your birth that you'll live with the rest of your life. So finding a provider that makes you feel seen, heard, and supportive is so important. So find that person for you. I mentioned this once already, and mentioned again, partner preparation. So whoever is coming into the birth with you, are they educated? Do they know what you want? Are they able to advocate for you? Have you had a good conversation about like, these are coping mechanisms I want to try. This is your role. This is how I want you to support me. Things like that. I'm always going to advocate for a doula. So doula support, they can be huge. I especially recommend them for first-time moms. I think a doula can be huge. Okay. So now that you have your support team, okay, you want to look at the birth environment consideration. So I already talked about where you're giving birth. Okay, now how can we make that area feel most comfortable to you? This is going to be different for everybody. Some examples are we doing like a birth tub? Are we bringing in little twinkly lights to the hospital? Are we bringing in essential oils? Are we bringing in music? Are we bringing in birth affirmation cards? Are you bringing your own blanket? Are you doing a birth at home? How can you make your home feel the most relaxing? Wherever it is, build an environment that sets you up for success and the most comfort possible. Okay? All right. The last thing that we're going to go on to is postpartum prep, okay? Everything that I already mentioned helps greatly impact your postpartum recovery. So the more you know about your pelvic floor, the better off you're going to be. The stronger you are, the better off postpartum recovery is going to be. The better prepared for birth you are, ideally the better your birth outcomes, the better your postpartum recovery. But there is specific stuff you can do during pregnancy to prepare for postpartum. So one of those is hiring a postpartum coach. So someone like myself, and ideally a pelvic floor PT as well. Someone that can be there to support you postpartum is huge. I also highly encourage clients to do some sort of meal prep in preparation for postpartum, whether this is a meal service, whether this is families going to do a meal train, whether this is you freezing a bunch of meals. The less you have to worry about food when baby comes, the better. Okay? Other things that I highly recommend is taking a lactation or breastfeeding course if you plan on breastfeeding. Highly recommend it. Breastfeeding is one of the things that I think is most underrated in its challenge. The more we can do to prepare for pregnancy or postpartum, early on during pregnancy, the easier we're going to make it. So building your habits, working on sleep, working on stress management, working on an exercise routine. I don't know how often I hear women say, well, when baby arrives, I'll start taking care of me. No, please don't. Please start earlier, because once baby arrives, it is a heck of a lot harder for us to build habits and take care of ourselves then, as opposed to if we've already built the habits and the lifestyle during pregnancy, even before that, and then transitioning. And yes, we're going to have to modify things a little bit, but at least we have a foundation that we can then continue into postpartum. Okay? All right. We're going to go over just a couple last pitch hitters here and then, or quick hitters, quick hitters, and then we're going to be done. So, couple recap key points. Your body is wise, but preparation always will enhance your body's wisdom. So the more you can learn and educate and support your body now, the better off you're going to be. Physical and mental prep are equally important. Listen to that again, you guys. You can't just do physical prep. You can't just do mental prep. You need to do both to have the best possible outcomes. Birth preparation improves both pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Not just one, but all three. Okay. So what I highly encourage you to do if this feels overwhelming to think about, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, start with one thing. What is one thing that you can implement today to start setting yourself up for better success, both during pregnancy, birth, and postpartum? Okay. Because you deserve to feel confident. You deserve to feel prepared and supported in your birth journey. Okay. All right, guys. We made it. Please check out the show notes. I'm going to link a whole bunch of awesome resources for you guys. Again, if you're interested in my birth course or one-on-one coaching, the information for that will be down below. And thanks for listening, you guys. As always, it's greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a share. And then if you can go to wherever you listen, whatever platform that is, and give us a 5-star review, we greatly appreciate it so that we can get these podcast episodes out to more ladies. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day. That's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you for hanging out with us on the Wild and Fierce podcast. If you loved this conversation, we'd be so grateful if you left a review and shared it with a friend who needs to hear this.
And if you really loved it, take a screenshot, share it on your stories, and tag us. We'd love to see it. Until next time, stay wild, stay fierce, and keep owning your journey.